So good morning and welcome to Monkhouse on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays, because there's so much demand, which is great. Today I'm really pleased to have Warren with me, who's the CEO of Abbeycroft Leisure. So hi Warren, how are you this morning?
Very well actually, David, thanks very much. It's Friday and the sun was sort of semi-shining last time I looked out the window, but it's disappearing rather rapidly, but yeah, good.
Yeah, I think it's the same, although the garden does need some water, doesn't it? So it's been quite an April. Right, so just looking there, sat there, you're looking really fit and healthy at the minute. Warren, what are you up to keep yourself active at the moment?
I wouldn't go that far, that completely fit and healthy, that might be extreme, but yeah, I balanced might be the view. But yeah, doing a bit of running, mostly every other day, doing a bit of 5K every other day, generally, and actually, slightly oddly, tried a bit of yoga actually while I've been at home.
Okay.
But it's
yeah, that's interesting.
Not something I've done before, but definitely improved my mobility, no end actually.
Yeah, absolutely. You're I think the third or fourth person that said that to me in these conversations, that they're actually finding yoga really good, not only for that flexibility, but also the mind piece as well, the mindfulness that you get with yoga, where you're actually concentrating on your breathing and things like that. So.
Yeah. I mean, as a beginner, the only thing I would say is that I'm most probably not in that mindfulness place yet. I'm more in a tortuous place, I would suggest. So that's what it is. Yeah, I'm not so sure I'm in the moment yet. Let's put it that way.
Okay. All right, excellent. Okay, so Warren, what I'm interested in is you guys operate in quite a rural area. I'd just be interested to know how different that is than you would imagine working in a city centre where you've got lots of people on your doorstep, etc. How has it been in lockdown for that sort of rural population of yours?
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting. Obviously, you haven't got the population base in terms of, we've got some, mid-market towns which you could suggest have got a similar environment to what some of the cities are having, but not perhaps the volume, clearly not the volume of people in there. But obviously, we've got lots of rural communities on the edges of that, and they always face barriers in terms of isolation, reality, and staying connected with some of those mid-market towns. And actually, some of our communities are very isolated. In the villages, it's quite fascinating that those community networks have come to the fore, that natural community network, which most probably is still there in most villages, is become more and more important again. And you can see people actively helping each other in any way they can, volunteering, supporting, good neighbours, just saying hello, that sort of stuff. And generally, I think I would notice, even when I'm out for a run or walking, is people are friendlier. They're saying hello, they don't know you. There is this slightly strange moment that everyone has to give each other 2 meters, so you cross roads to say hello. That's led to some quite odd conversations. But yeah, so generally it's been quite interesting. I mean, clearly that we're lucky we live in a rural part of the world in one sense from a physical activity point of view. I mean, even I have got farmers' fields with public footpaths all over the back of them, near my property. And yeah, I've been out running those. It's quite nice, particularly when we had the great weather. A little bit heavy underfoot. Now you've got the mud. So the opportunity to access the environment is pretty amazing, as long as you can do that.
Yeah.
And some of those most vulnerable, they can't, unfortunately, which is why some of the natural community support that they're getting now is ever so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're very reliable.
Yeah, and that leads me to my next question. You've talked about isolation, you've talked about people who live on the margins of a city type environment. And I guess you also, well, I know you work with a lot of vulnerable people in the services that you provide. So what have you guys been doing to support those vulnerable customers?
So I think this is a really interesting challenge for operators because effectively at the time you want to give your most, and there's the most requirement for that contact in you reaching your customers. We've had to downsize our workforce and work differently. So your ability to make the difference you want to make and you morally want to make is challenged. And I think that's an interesting dilemma for all of the people that have worked in the sector, in whatever, your natural thought process is, I want to help. How do I help? So I think that's an interesting sort of dynamic that's come out of this. I mean, from our point of view, we've clearly got a cohort of a team still working for us. And I would expand not just the most vulnerable in the community, but actually even our staff is we're making efforts to make sure we stay in contact with them. And whilst it's taken some time, things like we're making external calls to all of our exercise and referral clients, we're not pushing any particular product projects or anything like that. We're just making contact with them. How are you? Do you know you can get support from this place? Are you getting your shopping done? Is this working for you? And actually, those conversations are really powerful. One of our team had a conversation with an older person that hadn't spoken to anyone since lockdown had been in place.
Wow.
And spent 40 minutes on the call.
Yeah.
Told them to go and have a cup of tea, and then said, "I'll ring you back in 5 minutes."
Yeah.
And actually, it was a really sad story on one level, but it was the first contact they'd had.
That is incredible.
Last week, really quite sad in one sense, but great to hear our employees making that impact on someone's life and someone to talk to, and willing to do so. You know, some of these, our employees, they're not traditionally in roles that are all outward facing, so we've got a real mix of employees working for us, so they're using very different skills. And actually, I think the view from that particular guy, Ryan, was that actually that's one of the best things I've done during this. So yeah, really powerful stuff in terms of trying to reach those communities. The other thing, we've redeployed some of our team into families and community teams in the council, and they've been working with the most vulnerable in terms of being community connectors, making sure that they're reaching out to people and understand what resources are available to them. They might be assisting them find volunteers to deliver prescriptions, whatever it might be. So some of our workforce have done that. Interesting, some of our cleaning teams have been redeployed into sheltered housing units, supporting that effort. Some of our team actually, one of our sites is a medical distribution centre, equipment distribution centre, and they are basing themselves there for people that are discharged from hospital where they might need wheelchairs, walking frames, so on and so forth. So there's that. And actually, some of our work with the dementia initiatives have been involved in. We've been lucky enough to retain some funding to keep some of those people in post to make outward bound calls, keep in contact with those individuals. So yeah, there's quite a lot going on one level, but I think we're all frustrated that we can't do more. We'd love to do more, but you know, you do what you can to help as many people as you can. So I think that's quite fascinating. The other thing we've also, sorry, David. The other thing we've also been doing is appreciate the activity options available to you online or personally are huge. And in Suffolk, there is an initiative called Get Suffolk Moving, which is aimed to pull all that together as a central resource, really. So we've been pushing our customers and everyone we've come in contact with into that resource, and it's got loads of things you can do to try and keep you interested. So we've been trying to push that message to our communities as well.
Excellent. And the bit I was going to say earlier was, because I think you and I are both strong believers in learning development, in strengthening our teams, and also I think we're both good reflectors as well. And it would be really interesting to know from your team that have been doing these types of things, making the calls, being part of the distribution centres and things like that, just for them to spend some time, I suppose, reflecting on what they've learnt and how they can apply that going forward to the business once we get out of lockdown, because there's going to be some new skills as a result of this, you know, particularly those calls that people have been making. Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I think there is, and I think actually we should spend some time reflecting on how we've adapted and what our staff are doing and how the community is reacting to that. I think there will be a lot of learning about this on a number of levels. You know, staff that might have not felt confident to have that conversation are now more confident to do that. You know, the way people perceive their local facilities and services will be really, really different, and maybe there'll be a better attachment from a community point of view if they feel you've made a difference. I think they're quite fascinating. But then also for us as sector leaders, for want of a better term, I think there's some really interesting service models being created through this framework, and how we can work with our health partners to help replicate that moving forward, you know, in a sustainable way. I think there's some really interesting models been developed, and they might be being developed in our staff from a distance from us, volunteering somewhere, but it's worth us looking outside what we normally do to see what's going on there. I think that's going to be really, really important, because they are making quite a big difference. And I think all of us in the sport and physical activity sector, whilst we're in it for slightly different reasons, but traditionally to make a difference, and these guys are making a difference, and their impact on people's lives, and we can learn from that, and I think that will be an important part of the future.
Absolutely. So let's expand that thinking then. You've mentioned the word leadership in there, and I think leadership is absolutely vital, but what do you think it's going to look like, or what would you like it to look like? What's your utopia?
Yeah, the $1 million question, I think, at the moment, isn't it? Yeah. I think that the one thing I will say first is that based upon what I have observed and perhaps partially been involved in to date, the sector's become cohesive during this phase. And I think I'd want to see that continue.
Right.
That would be my view. The sector has united itself behind something, predominantly because of the need to survive. And that's a powerful driver. But also, you want to make a difference. And actually, you've come together around one core issue, and I think it's really important that we try and retain that moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
And actually put our differences aside beyond this a little bit, and we're all in it really for the same goal. Yeah. So I think one thing I will say about the sector before I go into what we deliver in our communities, I think it's important we try and stay cohesive. That won't be easy.
No, absolutely not. And I think Martin Alston's doing a lot of work around that. It's definitely worth reading the stuff he's putting out at the minute, which is really starting us to think about this universal proportionalism in a different way. I know he's about to put out another piece very soon, so he's definitely worth following up and looking at that. I think, but it is a big challenge, and I think we all need to step up to the plate. That's the representative organisations, that's people like me and you, it's our teams all contributing to really sharing what we've learned through this so that we can all grow together. I think it's a really interesting point.
Yeah, I think the other thing that we've shown, and not just our sector, but generally, we've shown our human side. And actually, I think that will be really, really important going forward. We've shown our passion, we've shown why we want to make a difference, actually making a difference, supporting people in various scenarios. Some of it will actually be under the surface. We'll have missed some of that, but we're really powerful. But as an organisation, and I think all of the organisations they've shown their human side to this. And I think it's really important as a sector we keep that. And we were quite strong at it anyway. But most probably for our existing customers or our cohort, that what's really important, we show our human side to the rest of the communities that we work in, and we use that as a platform for re-engaging people. And I think that is really, really important moving forward.
Absolutely, and I think it's also a really good way of closing our conversation, because our time has gone. I could talk to you for hours on this. Really interesting, Warren. I just want to say thank you for your insight, and also thank you to your team for what they're doing, because I think that's a really important piece, is to acknowledge what people have been doing during this time frame, because it's not easy for any of us. But Warren, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the weekend. Take care.
Thanks, David. Take care.